Ja, ze blijven scannen hoe het hout werkt.
Ja.
Dat blijft luisteren.
We kunnen gaan chatten natuurlijk.
Goed tekenen. Heel goed tekenen. Ja, doe maar.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Nicholas. I'm a member of Void Warranties in Antwerp. So you're always welcome on a Wednesday to visit our hackerspace. Today I'll be talking about hacking the IKEA Symfonisk Sonos speaker, which you see right here. So I'll be talking from my own experience of the modifications that I did, and then I'll also talk a bit about other things you can do with it. But so a first disclaimer, I'm not an expert at all in audio or electronics, so I got most of my information from the internet, as everybody does. And so especially this guy, Todd Parker, he has some great videos on different kind of things that you can do with this speaker. So first off, for people who don't know, Sonos, it's a brand that has been around for I think 10-15 years now. So they really started as a startup trying to disrupt the speaker business, and so they really focused on high quality speakers. So they're not cheap, so that's the downside of it, and they really focus also on wireless. So you typically connect the Sonos speaker to your wireless network. You can also wire it. If you have multiple speakers, they will also form a mesh network. So if coverage of your Wi-Fi network is spotty, they will just internally go over a different frequency. If you link your speakers, for instance in a surround system, it will also use a back channel for low latency communication between the two. And then they really have great software. So from the start, they will have a great smartphone app on every platform. You can run it on your tablet, and then you basically control the speakers. You have multi-room setup, so you can control the audio in multiple rooms or group them, stuff like that. Yeah, so from the start, I started buying Sonos speakers, and this is a setup that I have in my living room. So I have a play bar, which is kind of a sound bar, and then I have a subwoofer. So I have a pretty old house, so I have no wires, so that's the advantage, that I can just put them anywhere in the room and it'll just work. The soundbar, it's also really great music quality, and so that was also the key for me. If I just want to listen to music, getting the music over the soundbar, and then coupled with the subwoofer, you get nice bass, so it's also a really good audio experience. Apart from having great speakers on your TV, and then again, the software is really great. Then I inherited two really good speakers from my parents. Well, my parents didn't die, but basically they have a great stereo installation. They never use it, so I just got the stereo installation from them with these Bowers and Wilkins speakers, which also have great sound, and I wanted to integrate them in my setup. And so the target was to use them as the rear surround speakers, but also use them just for music listening, because they're great speakers. And so the Sonos way of doing this is to buy an amp for them. They're passive speakers, right? So they need to be amplified. And so this amp costs 800 euros. And then I was like, for adding these speakers to my system. So the play bar costs the same in that range. The subwoofer is also, so you're spending a lot of money. So I saw, yeah, so basically you see here the amp, so you can basically connect left and right to the left and the right speaker, and then you're done. You can also put it anywhere in the room. It will work wirelessly. But basically I saw that there were a lot of people hacking these Sonos speakers from IKEA. So that is the journey that I started on. So the first hack that I will talk about is basically connecting two of these speakers to the two passive speakers that I have. So this hack is like, it's called bi-amping a passive speaker. So a few years ago, IKEA, they started selling these speakers, which are actually Sonos speakers, but they are branded by IKEA. So it's a bit similar to the Philips Hue lamps that they sell. So they're much cheaper because they're IKEA branded, but they're basically the same thing. And so they sell a few different ones. Here you see the most common ones. So the one that I have, that's kind of like the bookshelf speaker. So you can, if you want, hang it on the wall. Put some stuff on it. So that's the angle that IKEA takes. So it's a speaker that also fits into your interior. They have like a thing that looks like a frame. They also have a thing that looks like a lamp. And as you can see, they're much cheaper. So it's basically the cheapest Sonos speaker that you can buy. It's only 100 euros. So the hack that I'm describing, you can also do it with a Sonos speaker, but then you're hacking into something that's much more expensive, and also it is packaged much more tightly. So here you see a Play 1. If you want to open that up and cut holes in it and then nicely put it back together, it's much, much harder. So my target was basically what you're seeing here. Use 2 of these. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there also an Ethernet port of the IKEA?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. So you can also wire them up if you want. So this is what I was going for. Basically connect the 2. I only brought 1, but so basically I have 2, 1 for each surround speaker. And so you can basically connect any two-way speaker. Two-way meaning you have a speaker with a woofer and a tweeter, right? And so we're basically going to connect these and not use the Symfonisk drivers, but use the one from the really high quality speaker. So getting into this thing, it's really easy. It's like they designed it. So it even has a flap. You just pull it. Then it basically has 8 of these rubber things that hold the thing in place. You take those out, then you basically have simple Phillips screws. You just unscrew it, which I have prepared this one. I already took them out. And then you can basically open it up. This is the hardest part, but I already did it in the car on my way here. So it should be a bit easier. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Then there's a flat cable connected to this front panel here. You have to disconnect. This basically is the cable that connects these 3 buttons, which are volume and play and pause. So I already disconnected this, but then you basically have the drivers here on this guy. So you have a woofer and a tweeter, and then in here is the actual the guts of the thing. So I basically disconnected the woofer and the tweeter. Here you see a better picture, which I can also show you like this. It's basically a PCB with the electronics on there. It has a heatsink connected to the back, and that's really it. And what you can see is there's a lot of room for cutting holes. It's really just an empty, it's mostly empty, just because you can use it as a bookshelf, so it's really great for hacking. And so if you look inside, what's mainly on the PCB, it's the Sonos chip, which does a digital crossover. So it basically splits the full signal into low frequency and high frequency. So it's basically what you see here. So the input is just regular audio, full signal, and gets split into 2. Then those 2 signals get sent to another chip, which is the Sonos DAC, so the digital to audio converter. So it's converted, both signals are converted, and then one is sent to the tweeter and one is sent to the woofer. So to connect the Symfonisk then to the passive speaker, I basically cut 4 holes in here with binding posts. So you can use any binding posts, doesn't really matter what. And I basically wired up the connections to these binding posts, so then I can connect these to my speakers. It's as simple as that. So here you basically see the schematic. And so if you just put this in a cabinet like I do, I put it in the back of my living room, you actually can open it up and just connect the wires and then you're done, right? So, but I wanted to be able to close it again to have a bit more tidy solution. That's why I put these binding posts here. But it's really super easy. You have plenty of room to just drill holes. And then you put the binding posts in, you solder it, and then you connect the wires here, and then you're done. It's really as simple as that.
And void the word.
I'm sorry?
And void the word.
Yeah, I guess you void the word. So then on the speaker side, a two-way speaker, if it has like one input, it will also have a crossover. But that's usually a passive crossover, so it's just a circuit that also does the same thing. It takes a full signal and splits it into high frequency and low frequency and sends one to the tweeter, one to the woofer. So what you really want to do is just remove that from your speaker. And then straight wire from the Sonos to the tweeter and the woofer in your passive speaker. So yeah, it's basically a very simple diagram. Now this is the back of my speaker. And so what you see there is it actually already has the binding posts for high frequency and low frequency in there. And why is that? It's basically for bi-wiring or bi-amping your passive speaker, which nobody ever does except audiophiles. But so a conventional setup is basically you have your right and your left signal from your amplifier. You send that to your left and your right speaker, and then you basically use a jumper. So basically the little gold piece that you see here basically connects high frequency and low frequency, so you can just use one wire to go from your amplifier to your speaker. And this is just the straight setup. But if you really insist, you can do what's called bi-wiring. And so then you basically run two wires. And it's basically the same signal going into high frequency and low frequency binding posts. The reason why people do this is to avoid some inference coming from your woofer going back into your cable. And so if you run two cables, people claim that the audio quality is slightly better. But so the good thing is that if you have these double binding posts on your speaker, then you don't need to add another two binding posts to do this hack. So in my case, it was very easy to do. So for completeness, here you see another scenario which is called bi-amping. So if you are a super audiophile, you could even have two amplifiers, one for the low frequency, one for the high frequency. This is mainly a relic from the old days when they still used the tube amplifiers. And so a tube amplifier has a much harder time doing the full range of the audio signal. And so then they would often use two separate amplifiers, one for low frequency and one for high frequency. And also in concerts, when you really need a lot of power, people also do bi-amping. Because then you really need a lot of power, and so then they have one amp for low, one for high frequency. Here you see some details of the speaker that I had. And so here you see the crossover in my speaker. But actually my speaker had tweeter, woofer, and also had mid-range, so what's sometimes called a squawker. So this crossover circuit actually splits the signal into three. And so here's a disclaimer, I didn't remove the crossover from my speaker. And so, so technically what I did was different to what other people are doing. But so here's the real trick of the Sonos. I said Sonos really has great software. And one thing is it has this feature called TruePlay. And so you can basically tune the speakers, the Sonos speakers in your room with the app. So you run the app on your phone, on your tablet, and then you walk around, and then the app will listen to the sound and then make adjustments to basically equalize the sound. And so this is a great tool for hacking because you can just try it out, run TruePlay, and then just figure out whether the sound is good or not. So for people who have never seen it, here you see that at work.
Is your speaker? Yep.
Yeah. You're not gonna hear much, but from my laptop speakers. But so you basically have to walk around. It will it makes these alien noises. So if you do something really wrong, it will also fail. The app will just say there's something wrong. I cannot. It doesn't work. But so in my case, it worked. And so what it basically does is hold on. Yeah. So here, this is a screenshot from Todd Parker. So then afterwards, when he plays music, you can just with another iPhone app just look at the spectrum and see if it's nicely flat. So that's actually what TruePlay does. It can compensate for different loudness in your speakers, or if you have carpets, or if there are gaps in the spectrum. And so TruePlay, it's great. It's just a software fixing the audio issues. We'll just make sure that it sounds great. So a few caveats with the methods. So first, you have to match the loudness of the driver. So if you have the two-way speaker with a tweeter and a woofer, you need to make sure that they are a bit on par with each other. And so loudness or sensitivity means that per watt that you put into the driver, you have the same output in decibels. And so here in this case, this is again from Todd Parker. There's a 3 decibel difference. So it's in the same range, but that small difference, TruePlay basically flattens it out, so it's no problem at all. Then impedance. So the Symfonisk woofer and tweeter, they're respectively 4 and 8 ohms. So then if you replace those with your own, you have to make sure it's in the same ballpark, so definitely don't go below 4. If you, for instance, have an 8 ohm woofer, again, the result will be that the output is just slightly less, but then again, TruePlay can deal with that. Then the driver range. So the digital crossover on these, it's at 3 kilohertz. So you just need to make sure that both the tweeter and the woofer, they cover the spectrum below or above that crossover frequency nicely. So here you see for the tweeter, it's on the right side of the graph. It's nicely flat. And here the woofer below the 3000 hertz, it's also nicely covering the frequency range. And then again, always just run TruePlay to fix issues, and it'll just sound great. Then, that was the first kind of use case for using these speakers. So the second one is, I was talking about a two-way speaker, but what if you have just a one-way speaker? So the case here is, for instance, ceiling speakers. So they don't have a separate tweeter or woofer. So if you go the IKEA route, these two from, the Sonos route, these two plus the amplifier, it's again a crazy amount that you're spending. But so, also if you have a speaker and you don't want to remove, you don't want to hack into your speaker, and it only has a single signal input, then you can do the following. So this is what Todd did. You basically take the signal from the tweeter and the woofer, and then you put a converter in between, and then you get a combined signal. The thing is, this doesn't give great audio quality, because actually the Sonos amplifier has a digital crossover. It splits the signal, and then you're just going to combine it again. And so it's not a great result. So the second method that you can do, which you can see in the previous link, is basically going into the Sonos again, and then on the amplifier side, just disable the digital crossover. So this chip here, the Sonos CPU, so to say, it's a Texas Instruments chip, and so people found the documentation of it. And so you can put it into bridge mode to turn off the digital crossover. And so for that, you just need to solder here like a few pins together. And so then, instead of outputting twice, or left and right, what am I saying, high and low frequency, 50 watts, it will just do nothing and output 100 watts, the full signal. Then on the DAC side, this is actually a stereo DAC because it's doing the 2 channels, converting digital to analog. On that side, you basically get the full signal on both, and then you need to just merge these 2 signals together, and you do that by kind of soldering a jumper here. And so this is the DAC, and then basically what you get is 1 signal out, and this works really well. So yeah, it's going a step further, and really yeah, when you do this, it's also hard to still use your Symfonisk for something else, huh? So it's a little more invasive. Then another thing you can do is, if you just want to add some extra bass to your speakers, that's also something that you can easily do. So let's say you buy 2 of these, so you have left and right, you have stereo, and then you just want to add some bass to it. You can just buy a cheap subwoofer, cheaper in the sense that the Sonos one is, again, I don't know, 700 or 800 euros. And so what you can basically do is, if you have your binding posts here at the back, just feed the signal of the woofer to your subwoofer. And so this will already give you much better sound because you have the extra bass. The downside of this is that you put the same signal to your Symfonisk subwoofer versus your cheap subwoofer. And so you're going, if you then do a true play, you're gonna put a lot of strain on this guy, and so you get some distortion on this one. So what you can do with a subwoofer that has input and output, you can basically take the output of this and connect that to this one. So what will happen is you get the low frequency here on the input, and then on the output it has a low frequency filtered out. And so then will not be taxing this one as much. So that's what you're seeing here. And so then you basically have your speaker connected to the subwoofer, and then the subwoofer back to the same speaker to really use the woofer in the speaker in a better way. Then what you can also do is here you see a subwoofer typically has left and right. And so in the setup that I'm describing here is that you're basically harvesting the low frequency sound only from one channel. But the low frequency, so the bass in sound, it's usually mixed quite in a mono way. So the low frequency that you have on your left or right channel is virtually the same. And so then doing this just on one speaker is usually enough. But if you really want to get even a bit better, you can connect the left one here, and then the right one, you just do the same hack again with the other speaker to get kind of the full left and right low frequency signal into your subwoofer. Then you can also do this in a surround system setup. So imagine you have your play bar, or this is actually a beam or an arc. You buy the 2 Symfonisk speakers, and then you don't want to spend more money on the Sonos subwoofer. So then you do the same thing that I just described, and you just add a cheap subwoofer to your rear surround speakers. Again, what you're doing then is you're harvesting the low frequency, so the bass signal from your rear speakers, and feeding that into the subwoofer. So it's kind of .1-ish. So if you really have a separate Sonos subwoofer, it really extracts the low frequency from the full surround signal and sends that to the subwoofer. What you're doing here is just harvesting the low frequency from your rear signal. But still, it's much cheaper and it still sounds great. So why not? Then the The next thing that you can do is just take the Symfonisk and only connect the subwoofer. And that way you've created a standalone subwoofer which you can then add to any room. So that's also a use case. So what you do then is you just disconnect the tweeter and only connect the woofer, and then you're done. And so to set this up in Sonos, you need to create a new room and then group it with the room where you actually put it in to kind of trick the Sonos system into using it as a subwoofer. Then another thing that you can do if you want to make modifications is to just put in some switches. So I talk about a lot of these cases. So for instance, what I did, the bi-amping of a two-way speaker. Let's say you want to go back and just use the Symfonisk speaker standalone. Then if you put in switches, you can just switch between the different scenarios without having to rewire anything. And so you can just use a 2-pin DC switch. Any one is fine. And then you can basically, for instance, turn the woofer or the tweeter off based on the scenario. And so then this is a screenshot from Todd. So here he has a 2 pair of binding posts and then the 2 switches all nicely packaged. And then the last thing that I want to say is there's also a really great article which goes even one step further and just which takes the whole PCB out of the Symfonisk speaker and puts it in the passive speaker. So then you don't have to run wires from your cabinet or so where you put this to your speaker, then it's all even nicer and tidier. And that kind of concludes my talk. So thank you very much. Any any questions?
You say something about the same resistance. I think my speakers are 8 ohm. Can I just hook both of them up to the 4 and the 8?
Yeah. I think that will work. Yes. Yeah. So in the Symfonisk case, it's 4 and 8. So then. So it's actually 4 and 8, and so this is the case where you take the 4 one and you replace it with an 8 ohm. Then you'll just get a little bit less output from it, but then the TruePlay will compensate for that. But so people on the internet, they're often confused by this because they say if you change the ohms on one of the drivers, it has a big impact on the crossover frequency of your passive crossover. But in this case, the Sonos does a digital crossover, so it has no impact on that whatsoever.
I have a question about the true sound. You said
The TruePlay.
It equalizes the frequencies.
Yeah.
But so I'm not a sound expert, but I prutz a lot with an equalizer when I was young, and I remember that different sound applications they have like presets. So for headphones you need this blah blah blah. So for me, seeing this flat line, this almost equal thing, it sounds counterintuitive to me to make it sound good, or? Yeah,
so with TruePlay you tune it, and so I'm assuming it tries to flatten out everything, and then you can still have your equalizer settings on top of that.
Okay, so then it's like relative
to the baseline. So you just exactly. And so I mean,
it looks for a baseline on which to.
Yeah, for instance, in my living room, I have a night mode, which I often use. So then the bass goes down, and then it enhances the spoken sounds. Yeah, so you can do all of that.
One where you give more bass.
Yeah, party mode. Yeah, go ahead.
I currently use I think a park at the TV with little ones to create a surround set. And some applications like Netflix then support surround. This is a way cheaper way, use Symfonisk to create a surround set. And the third application you showed was adding a cheap sub.
Yeah.
At the moment in the Sonos application, you can add a separate sub, but you said you can trick the Sonos application, making a separate room, combining them,
Yeah, exactly.
and that way, adding a sub. So for my surround set, I would think I would buy an extra Symfonisk, add a cheap sub.
Yeah, this
It
one.
needs to be an active sub, right? It needs to be
Yeah,
that way.
exactly.
Not a passive
A
one?
powered, need to be
Needs to
powered, so
okay.
yeah.
And then you just add it to the group, then you have a 400 euro base instead of an 800 euro base.
So which rear speakers do you have?
Ones.
The ones, yeah. You don't really want to hack into those, because you can also do this scenario.
Yeah, this looks cheap.
No, but this assumes that you have the Symfonisk as your rear speakers. But so you have the play ones, so you can do this technique with your play ones. But then you have to cut into the play
I'd
ones.
rather buy a Symfonisk. But then the Sonos application will not recognize it as a sub, because now in the group, the surround group, it says like add a sub, and then
Yeah, you can only add a Sonos sub. Exactly.
the shopping page with the expensive sub.
Yeah.
So now my application with this solution will still say like, hey, add a sub, but I tricked it into actually adding a sub.
Yeah, so what you do is you basically add the Symfonisk as a separate room. And then you just group it.
Right.
So you go living room plus a sub room, and then you do the true play, and then you're done.
How much is a Symfonisk currently in IKEA?
100 euros.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite cool.
I have a 5.1 system at home, which I like but barely use because it's not a smart speaker. Could I just take the Texas Instruments chip from that and hook it up just for the audio signal?
Yes. Yeah. But then you have to figure out to which of the speakers you want to connect it, right? So do you want to use it still as surround, or do you want stereo?
Preferably it should be surround.
Yeah.
Possible. I mean, I have the different inputs, and I can feed every channel with a 3.5 millimeter jack.
But you don't have surround with 3.5mm jack.
With several.
Okay. A multi-channel.
Yeah. Also, it has optical input.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably more of a hassle with the TI chip, but basically I'm just looking for an idea of how to wirelessly getting a signal to the speaker into that system.
Yeah, I think the technique should work. Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to use it with things you're watching on the screen or doing surround. There's quite a few Snapcast-based solutions. I know some who've made a rather cool implementation on the ESP32 with everything integrated, even Spotify support. We do multi-room synchronous audio players. That's completely open source, and then you can buy it for no money at all a Class D amplifier to run the speaker. So you just need the power plug into it. So maybe have parts for 20 to 50 euros a piece, max.
I have one small question. Do you have the idea that this amplifier is possible to get the full potential out of your big speakers, or not?
Yeah, that's hard to say, but if you do, I mean, I wouldn't hear the difference probably. That's one thing, and the other thing is the true play is really the magic touch, because I'm just throwing all this stuff together in my room, and then I use true play, and then it sounds great. But so I use it as the rear speaker, so usually they're not used that much. It's only when a car passes or something. And then I mainly hear it, the 5.1 effect while gaming. So there you really hear the quality of the speakers. And then the last thing that I use it for is just to listen to music. And then Sonos has the standard setting is that you barely use your rear speakers. So it's mainly the play bar playing the music. But then it has a setting to also use the rear speakers fully. And then audiophiles are often against it to have a double stereo, but I think it sounds good.
Is
So
that
then you have.
voice and music setting in Sonos?
I'm sorry?
That's the voice and music setting in the
No. It's when you have surround and you just play music. It's a setting. Use your rear speakers fully or not. Yeah.
True sound that's stored on the speakers itself. Those settings, or
it's the Sonos system who stores it. So I'm assuming all the speakers store everything.
because you use the app, but does this all work like offline? Do I need internet to use Sonos?
Yeah.
Even when I set everything up.
No, you only need it once to set up with an account and do all the features, and then it doesn't matter if it ever.
Okay, yeah, and then I can.
You can do. I think you can do everything offline.
But every time you move the speaks physically, the through something needs to be run again because it's out of tune for your.
Yeah, so if I don't have a decent microphone, I can basically ask someone with an iPhone to drop by, log in the account, do the thing, and then delete the account.
No, they don't need the.
Well, their phone.
Yeah, because Sonos you can hijack if you're on the same network. It doesn't need an online account.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a guest feature, so you can play your Spotify, your SoundCloud, and YouTube music.
But I think there's a setting allow where like turn on a password or not, so that anybody.
So someone else can tune your speakers. That is the joke in Horeca. You know, they buy Sonos, and then they have guest network from Telnet Proximus, and then guest, starts playing on the Sonos speakers. Something we need to.
It sounds like bad isolation on the.
Yeah, I mean, there's a company that specializes in that kind of security.
So are those speakers just Wi-Fi or is it also Bluetooth?
So these are Wi-Fi, but now they also have certain models which also have Bluetooth. And then there's also, for instance, Apple AirPlay, which is yet another way of driving the speakers. And so the newer ones, they all support that as well. Yeah, but so the standard Sonos speakers, they're not meant to be like portable. And that's why they're only Wi-Fi, but then they have like a Sonos Roam, which you can really take to the park with you, and then you just use Bluetooth. Yeah, because switching, let's say you go on holiday and you take your Play 1 with you, and then you have to add it to another Wi-Fi network. That's really a big pain.
It's a big deal. But I used to have a Logitech surround sound.
Yeah.
I think it's a Z906. It's one of their more premium. It's a €200 gaming surround set. 5 years ago, I bought the old amp, the one that's not supported in the new application. It's the S1 still supported, and just hooked up the speakers to that one, so that it is like Sonos enabled. That works the same, because that was the only solution for connecting to my TV and a computer at the same time, because the surround only had one optical in, and the old Sonos amp had multiple inputs. I think that fits really close to the solution you're looking for, because that amp has a regular line in, but also wireless functioning with solar encryption. I assume you can hack it as well, because it's old.
Just be nice to have something that was not reliable.
Yeah, true.
When I started, this open source didn't exist yet, but I think if I were to start all over again, then I might also look into the open source.
But it's not really kind of settled properly enough, so, but it would be kind of cool if kind of like there's a few other projects for other applications, like even for the for video viewing, or like to have something that's just more unified for audio management, because that's kind of been a pain for a long time. I can remember the other one that's Snapcast, the audio sharing thing in Linux, that just never really worked.
All right. Thanks, everybody.